Hi, Lucy,
Hi.
and welcome to the New World Lead.
Thank you very much.
With the New World Lead, I explore the question, how do we create the world we love to live in? And I found the extremely relevant to invite you to this conversation because you have been studying the concept and the practice of love for the most of your life.
Yeah.
You
Thank
can
you
say.
very much. I'm very happy to be part of this project today.
Thank you so much. You are a master of cultural studies, a psychotherapist, an author, and a speaker, and now also the executive director of Promentum Nordic, and a regenerative chief advisor.
Yes.
And what caught my attention, obviously, and the reason why I invited you today is the TED Talk you did last year, which is called Love in 96 Ways. And I was like, this is really interesting, because you touch on this. It's kind of a metaphor when you talk about Greenland and all the different words they have for snow, and that is really vital for their survival, actually, that they have these very many different words for snow. And then you make the case for why it is so important that we expand our awareness of love. And you point out the strange thing that in many languages, we only have one word for love, whereas in Sanskrit, they have 96 different words for the experience of love. You talk about the need for an education, a new education of love. And I really want to explore this, obviously with the main question, how do we create the world we love to live in, as a reference point, but let's first dive into to your exploration and experiences of love.
Okay, my experiences of love. That's gonna be a long story.
What is love?
Yes. Yeah, well, okay, let's start there. What is love? Um, so I think what has always interested me is love at the stage that I was in life. And obviously as my life story has evolved, my understanding of love has also evolved or changed. And where I am today is very, 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 very different from where I was when I was 16 or 14 or 20. And no doubt that most of my life I have actually understood love as a relationship between two people. I have understood it as in many ways, you know, when I thought of love, and this happens also when I ask other people about love, you know, I say, what is love to you? The natural go-to is often romantic relationships. It's often, oh, it's a love, it's a relationship between, it's a romantic love relationship between two people. And I have certainly also explored that space quite extensively. I would say I've had you know I've had I've experienced a lot of different types of relationships. I've been in monogamous, of course, normal monogamous relationships with a husband and two beautiful children and a family life. I explored having three. I was in a polyamorous relationship with with three partners, committed love, committed love relationships at the same time. I have had what today I think it's called serial monogamy, where you have like relationships of 1 or 2 years, and then they're serial. So I have really explored romantic love in different ways. And 4 years ago, I was married for the second time, and I got divorced, and I moved into the forest, and where I live now. And that was quite a pivotal change in my understanding of love, because I started to actually connect. I started to get very, very well. I didn't start to, but that was where the experience of love expanded as a state inside of me. And I've always been very, very, very interested in energy, understanding sexual energy, not as this as a life force energy. Sexual energy is a life force energy, and one of the books, the main book I've written is about how you connect heart energy and your wisdom. Some people call it third eye, or but when you connect wisdom with your heart energy and your sexual energy, that state, I've been very, very, you could say, preoccupied with how do we actually manage this energy as a state, and how do we meet the world from that place. So 4 years ago, when I moved into the forest, something changed, because I was very much by myself. It was just before COVID, and I had no romantic relationship in my life. And I really, really experienced very, very powerfully what love, the experience of love itself, which is detached from a relationship to another person. It's simply as a state, as an energy, and it's something that I understood before. I had heard about it. I understood it, but when I started exploring the power of being immersed in the forest, something changed.
You speak about an experience you have had in the forest in this TED talk, Love in 96 Ways, where you wake up in the middle of the night with anxiety, and you walk out into the forest, and suddenly you have this experience of feeling completion and connected, and like you surrender to this energy of love, and it suddenly dawns on you that this is the love hack, the antidote to loneliness. This is powerful. This is really powerful.
It's very powerful, and it's very powerful also, seen in the context that one, loneliness is we some people actually describe loneliness as the epidemic of our time. That there's a lot of research also pointing to that loneliness is as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It's very bad for our physical health. It's very, very threatening for our mental health. Again, many studies point in the same direction, that loneliness is the source today of higher numbers of suicide, of anxiety, and so loneliness is it's really a very, very profound problem for our societies today. And my own story is also that I thought, I literally thought that I had the loneliness. I thought I was genetically predisposed for being lonely. I thought that for many years. It took many years before I understood that it's actually not something genetic. And so I've so I have, just like a lot of other people, a very profound experience of loneliness, and I've studied it a lot also academically. So what happened, and this is what the story is, yes, that I live in I moved in the forest, and it's very, very dark. It's in Scandinavia. It's a Danish pine forest. It's black, black, black in the winter. And I would get these, I mean, I didn't get sort of anxiety not like attacks of anxiety in that way, in that sense, but I did get anxious, and my heart would start beating, and I was like, okay, if I'm going to live by myself in the forest, I have got to deal with this. I mean, I can't sit here every single day and freak out, obviously, because then I would have to move somewhere else, right? So I did that. I decided to every time that I experienced anxiety, I would put on all my winter clothes and my hat, walk out to the forest. And the dogma was I couldn't take my phone, I couldn't have any light with me. I just had to walk and allow this emotion to release in my body. And it was on one of those walks where it was full moon. When the full moon is in, when it shines in the forest, it's almost like there's like being on a movie set. I mean, the lights are just coming from up. It's so beautiful. And what I describe in the talk that you're referring to there is that I have this experience where I had at this point practiced connecting to the being of nature, to the being of a tree, to the being of nature as a whole, to the being of the moon. And what happened there was that I had been walking for quite a while, and then suddenly, I'm in the forest, and the moon is shining, and I decide to connect to a tree. That's what I do there. And it just something just clicks, where I just feel that I feel the plug-in. I feel the little plugins I have made for many, many years suddenly become that one big plugin to the today I understand it as the love, the universal love. The field. That's where the big plug-in happens, and I suddenly just feel that I experience the full connection, which until then I had probably talked about it a little bit. I had experienced it a little bit. We experienced it in good connections with people, where the feeling of separateness actually kind of collapses and we feel the unity, right? So what happened there was that just was like an indefinite motorway. There was no separation in my system. I just didn't. The experience of full connection was very, very powerful. And at that moment, yes, it was. The anxiety left my body, and more than that, the sense of being alone it just wasn't accessible to me anymore. I couldn't access that feeling. And that's what I refer to in the talk about the love hack. The love hack to the antidote to loneliness is in that full connection. And we can do that with people, right? We can momentarily, we can have when we fall in love, or when we're having, these great conversations with people, we are flowing, or some people experience this in meditations or in shamanistic journeys, or, there's so many ways we can experience that completion. The thing is that with people, we have a tendency to let that person walk away with the connection, right? So if our connection if there's a disruption, if there's a conflict or something, then whoop, suddenly we feel disconnected. And that happens a lot in romantic relationships, obviously, that we disown our state of love and we place it in a relationship. So we sort of hand it over to the other person. So the other person becomes defining. The other person defines, or the quality of the relationship becomes defining for, are we feeling love? Are we not feeling love? Are we feeling lonely? Are we feeling, all that? So one of the things I really want with the talk and in general, what my mission, part of my life mission, is to inspire us all to go to tap into that state, the state of love. And that state is one we can, the easiest way to access it is by giving love. It's super simple. We all know that, right? We know that when we do something loving to another person, it activates a sensation of love inside of us. And that's it. That's what love is. It's it's an experience. It's simply an experience. That's all there is in life. There are inner experiences. It's the only thing that exists. So when we do something loving, we activate the experience of love inside of us. And the cool thing about that is that that's totally within our own influence. You want love, you just go out and give someone some love, and then you have it activated in your body.
So what you speak of here is actually love as a heart frequency, or as a frequency actually vibrating so much higher than the frequency of loneliness and despair and anxiety. So when you are at that level of frequency, the other experiences leave the body, because you elevate yourself. And then obviously the most powerful thing, I think it was so powerful, really listening to the way you described the experience, and you're doing it alone. You are, taking your whole life journey into account, as you have been described it in your podcasts and in book and everywhere, describing this journey of rejection or loneliness, and feel like trying to get it, looking for love in all the wrong places actually, and then suddenly going through this life journey with all the lessons, and suddenly finding yourself in a forest all alone and experiencing, wow, it's all within.
And we say that a lot, right? Oh, it's all within. Oh, you have to love yourself in order to love others and all that. And the difference, of course, is in the experience. That's where everything changes. It's when we actually have the experience. And I think a lot of us have worked with self-love, for an entire lifetime. Oh yeah, it's true. I have to love myself, and we'll do self-appreciation exercises, and and we'll go to therapy, and then we'll work with my self-worth, and I have to appreciate myself, and I have to value myself, and we work with our childhood stories and our childhood traumas and all that, and I think a lot of us recognize that, right? And we see it in corporations, by the way. We see it with leaders. If they, have a broken relationship to self, that broken relationship to self goes directly out into the way they lead, right? So we see it in every single, we see it in politicians. We see it, we can sense if there's a broken relationship to self, how it comes out in a specific, in a specific conduct. We see that, we sense that. And the question is then, and this is something I'm very fascinated by is the simplicity of the most important things in life. And the simplicity, there are very, very few, the simplicity is, you want to love? Okay, start giving love. That's it. It's that simple.
Yeah, but then again,
and it is that simple, and we have to understand this, that it's not giving, like, because there will be people listening to this saying, oh, but my God, I give all the time, and it's about time for me to start giving to myself, and I just, I don't have time for myself. That's a story. We know that story, right? No, I can't give. I give all the time. That's not giving.
It's not love. It's not love to give, to receive. That's actually manipulation.
It's actually manipulation. It's borrowing, right? I'm not giving, I'm borrowing. I'm giving something, but I want it back. And I want, and we want it back. Maybe not, a lot of people, when they say, no, I give, no, I don't expect anything back when I give. And I'll say, okay, so let's then imagine this person you're giving, and you don't expect anything back, but then you need help from them, and then they don't help you. Then what? Does the thought exist in you where you say, oh, that time when I helped you, now I never ask for help, and now this one time I ask for help, and then you can't even help me? Do you recognize that story? And most people do recognize that story. I recognize the story. That so giving, the art of giving, is a whole, it's a whole video, it's a whole talk for itself.
Yeah, but it also has to
clean heart and giving from a clean place.
Yeah, but it also has to go hand in hand with the art of receiving as well. Then
interesting. Say some more about that.
Because I think, but they should. It's like, if you are in a state of trust, in a state of, like you said, completion and connection, that you come from a place of giving. You're giving whatever feels right for you to give at every point in time. And then that you are also, you will receive whatever you need, but it doesn't have to be from the people that you give, that it can come from someone or something else, that it's in that way, trusting that we are all connected by energy, that everything is energy. And if we are at a vibration of love, living from that place, we know that we have to surrender into the moment all the time, and not and I know that, like, we are all human beings, and as you said, okay, I've been giving and giving and giving and giving and giving to that person, but I never get anything in return. At some point, you might feel like, maybe I should stop giving here, set a boundary, and start giving to someone else. So it's also, that is an interesting thing to explore, actually. When we get caught up in our relationships. Before we got on this conversation, we talked about this experience of being caught up in someone else's drama, or maybe victimizing ourselves in a relationship or something like that. That's not love, Lucy, is it?
No. I like to say that love is love, and when I have conversations with people about love, they will say, oh yeah, love hurts, they'll say, or love is deceitful. Ooh. Or better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all, or that type of statements that are all talking, that are all pointing into trauma history, to childhood dynamics, dysfunctional dynamics, dysfunctional attachment patterns that have got nothing to do with love. Love, when we express love, expressed love is expressed love. I mean, you can't say love hurts, because then that's not love. It's something else that hurts. It's our feeling of not being worthy, or feeling of rejection, or grief of loss, having lost someone. That hurts, but that's not love, right? And that's that's also part of what really fascinated me with the Sanskrit, which is Sanskrit that I mentioned in the TEDx talk, that Sanskrit is one of the oldest languages of our civilization. Some researchers actually call it the oldest language, and it's a language that it's so fascinating because it's created to activate an experience, and these 96 words for love is, as I noticed you said it very, very detailed, that it's the experience of love. It's 96. It describes 96 experiences of love, and that fascinated me. It's like, oh, okay, so the love for a female friend, for instance, is there's a Sanskrit word for that experience. And when I think about the love I feel for a female friend, yes, that it ignites a specific experience, and that just fascinates me to say, okay, what if I start noticing how often I'm actually activating in that inner state? When I appreciate beauty, when I look at a flower, or hear nature, listen to the song of the birds, and I just connect to deep appreciation. That's love right there. When I eat something, I mean something, I have this fantastic dinner, or like if I have now I have a life partner. And so yesterday he made this amazing fruit salad, and I was, wow, and I was looking at it. It was so beautiful that he had done that, right? That's one part. Then what he had done was, there was this so many colors in it. So I would appreciate the colors. Then I would eat it, and I would appreciate the taste of it. All that are little experiences of love. That, and here, okay, it's a romantic, there's a partner involved, right? So we could also say, let's say that wasn't involved. The whole experience, the food experience, is still igniting a sensation of love in my body, in my experience. The thing is, in order for us to activate that love state, it requires awareness. And again, it's quite simple. It's not rocket science. It's super simple. That when we just become aware of it and say, okay, wow, I really appreciate this beautiful flower, or I appreciate this food, or I appreciate something you do, or in this very moment, as you and I speak, I connect with you, and I appreciate the connection. I am aware of the connection. There is love activated, and it's quite difficult to feel. Researchers, they define loneliness as involuntary social isolation. Involuntary, which is, it's very important. It's being alone, because of course we can be alone and feel connected to the universe, and feel full completion. So it's not being alone. It's an experience of involuntary social isolation. So, and we can experience that with other people, right? We all know that also. We know the excruciating pain of being together with someone, or a group of people, either a partner or a group of people or family members, where we actually feel completely disconnected to them. That's an excruciating pain. For I have it in my own experience. I think many people know what that's like.
Yes.
And that's why the antidote to loneliness is not putting 100 people in a room together. Never, right? But yeah, so the disconnection is the involuntary, that I want to be connected, but I can't, and that's why when we talk about this appreciation, for instance, or that we become aware of the immense amounts of love there actually is in the world for us, coming from us, that's a very powerful place to be, because we then take, instead of being dependent on someone else giving us love, someone else doing something, something else happening outside of us so that we can feel love, then we can actually start noticing what we love.
Yeah, it's really interesting. My own experience with romantic love is that I met my husband, actually now lover and boyfriend, 31 years ago when we were 20, and we were together for 27 years, created two beautiful children, had a wonderful life experience. But at some point around these 27 years, it was like, okay, something has to change. And it became so painful that I actually had to leave him. And we got a divorce, and we were separated from each other for 1 year. And being alone activated actually a totally new sensation and level of love. And it's this experience of having to be alone to activate a new level. And then we found each other again, and we moved together again, and we are creating life anew in a new version together, all of us with our children, which is a wonderful love story, but also a story full of shame and guilt and all the toxicity from the programming, the upbringing, the ideas of who you are and who you are not. At least I felt that I had so many layers and so many masks put on that I was not even in a position to feel the completion and the connection within me. So I had to strip everything from the outside in order to really gain that experience again. And I think that's why I connected so deeply with your story of going into the forest and being alone, and having that deep spiritual experience, as I would call it, like experiencing love as this heart frequency, this opening of the heart within you. And this changing everything forever.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I describe it mostly as, I like to call it plug into the field, that you actually, like, I kind of see it like we take this huge plug and just plug into the field, right, of universal love and wisdom.
Yeah.
And we can call that so many things: the universe, God, the divine source. There's so many collective consciousness. There's so many words for it. And when I listen to you, I think it's important that we also speak about it's simple. It's super simple. That doesn't mean it's easy, right? And as you know, when I listen to you, I'm hearing, yeah, okay, there was a story you went through situations, dynamics that needed to be taken care of and looked at and nourished, and that's that's one part of it that's so pivotal, and that is that what happens then when I say, okay, you want love, okay, start giving. I said earlier, easy peasy. What's the problem? Obviously, it's not that easy because there's so many dynamics at play, right? When we decide, okay, so I'm going to start giving, but then what if that person has? What if there's a person who has hurt me really badly, and I want to reconnect with that person? What do I then do with the resentment? What do I do with, what's the difference between self-loss, losing myself, and giving? And so there's so many psychological layers that are so important that we deal with. And that is why knowing ourselves is the number one key. I mean, this is what, Jesus Christ said, and many spiritual traditions talk about this. The truth shall set you free. What does that mean? It means that we need to get to know it. We need to get to know ourselves, the dark sides, our destructive sides, our all the mud, I would call, that keeps the energy from flowing. So that's why we have to do the psychological work before we can actually access that energy, the flow of love energy. It's not just saying, okay, I'm just going to start giving, because a lot of stuff comes up when we decide to give, for instance, right? So, but I would also like to talk a little bit something that I think is very important in the time that we live in. Now, this program is called the New Lead, right? And so leadership is so many things. It's the leadership in our, in our personal realm, in society, in organizations, and I think it's also very important here that the new lead, that the new paradigm, is also about that. It's, activating at the end of the day. It's about activating love. And it sounds fluffy and romantic and idealistic, but at the end of the day, that's how we're going to survive on this planet, is by giving, right? I mean, we have taken from nature, we have taken from our source to food, to oxygen, basically food, shelter, and oxygen. Nature itself, we have just taken and taken and taken, and we're kind of in a mess right now, right? And we're kind of in a little messy situation there.
We need to start doing something else.
We need to do something else, and we need to do it quite fast, actually, because we're kind of in a critical situation. So, and there it also comes into to such an obvious thing. Okay, the very source of our food, of our oxygen, of our shelter, we have taken and taken and taken. And what's the consequence? It is that we face the collapse, the complete collapse of humanity. That's what we're sort of looking into, like, really soon. So what's the antidote to that? That is to start giving, right? And it's the same logic. If I want our relationship to thrive, And if I want to experience love, I have to start giving. And it's the same, of course, with the world situation that we're in. And that really fascinates me to think, oh wow, what if organizations, what if decision makers, what if leaders, what if politicians started accepting, okay, let's change this mindset to a giving mindset.
Exactly.
What would then happen?
And that's exactly, like that is the point of the regenerative leadership, obviously. And I understand totally this transition of your career path into this new leadership at that level. What I as a visionary leader myself, and with this new World Lead project, I also, it was also birthed from this this witnessing our current world leaders operating from an old position of fear, of control, of lack and limitations in this whole handling of the pandemic situation all around the world. And I was like petrified, and I was like, wow, why is no one speaking up at that level in order to change the whole perception of this? What is going on? Are people totally lost in fear or what? And for me, it's interesting because, and I want to talk about that. In order to define what is love, we also need to look at what is the opposite of love. And we've done it a little bit. But to me, that's interesting, because to me, the opposite of love is fear. That obviously comes from my training in the course of miracles, and of my whole spiritual background, and my own personal experiences of delving into the energies of love, and then the energies of fear, and really feeling how it's two different levels of energy, of vibration, and you cannot, they cannot coexist in you. Either you are coming from a place of love, or you are coming from a place of fear, as I experiencing and feel it. And especially recently, I felt myself falling into holes of fear holes. Like there are still so many parts within me, my programming, that are resonating with fear. And then if I go out into the world and I meet people, I attend gatherings or seminars, and then something triggers this, I feel like, whoa, that we have this fear again, and I have to really take a responsibility for transforming it within me, because it's so painful now to be in that state. Because this is not the position of a new world lead, and I have to embody my project, and that is just, so what am I rambling about here, in order for us to explore a little about the opposite of love? Because for you, obviously, it was loneliness, like love as the antidote. And I heard one of the professors you interviewed to your podcast, a professor in sociology, who said, well, he quoted another philosopher, and she said that love is really seeing someone else, really seeing another person as different from you, separate from you, really seeing not as an object or as something for you to get something from, but really, really appreciating, here we have another wonderful being who is capable of creating and interacting from, and like being open for that. And when I heard that definition, I was really like, wow, this goes right into my childhood wound of not being seen and heard and respected, and from parents that were not able to see anything but themselves and and a projection. And I really want to, I mean, I thought it was interesting. What is the opposite of love, Lucy? What is it?
Well, it's interesting what you're saying. And I love that conversation with him, because he's sort of the leading, he's the leading researcher in love in Denmark, right? And so we were very, the producer and I, we were very excited about meeting him and talking to him about love. And what happened was actually that his entire take on love is that it's relational. That's his take on it. He talks about love as something happening between two people. And so the conversation we had got quite interesting for us, because I was like, okay, but I don't believe it's only between I believe love can express itself in the relationship between two people. But I mostly believe in, what we have been talking about until now, that love is an inner state that's always present, and that we can plug into it. We can become aware of it. It's ever present. It's always there, because it's basically the it's the universe. That's basically it's
basically who we are.
It's who we are. It's yeah. So when I hear what you're saying there, that the other philosopher that he talks about, to me, what I hear is love expresses itself in seeing each other. It's an expression of love. It isn't love itself. It's an expression of love. And love expresses itself in so many ways. But love is something else. It's an energy and an awareness, in my understanding. So that's sort of that. What's on the other side of love? I agree. I'm on the same boat, on the same page, that I do understand the opposite of love being fear. And then I also see fear. Okay, so what does that mean? Greed, for instance, that is fear expressing itself in a fear of not having enough. Aggression, fear of not being good enough, fear of losing power, fear of I don't know, so many things. So many of the things that we see, where people will say, oh no, but some people also say that the opposite of love is hate, for instance. Mm-hmm. And I would never say that. What is hate? Again, I understand hate as fear. I understand. So yes. So I see, we're on the same page there. I would always say that the opposite of love is fear. And I would also just sort of, I remind myself. So okay, now I'm afraid. What would love do now? Part of how love expresses itself is in trust, right? So the opposite of love is fear. Is love expressed as trust. So I'm freaking out. I'm really afraid about my future. Okay, what's on the other side of that? There's trust. I trust everything will be okay. That's love expressing itself as trust. So to me, it's actually quite important, especially when working with people or teams or organizations, that you actually think, when people start freaking out, saying, okay, we don't know the future, if it's personal, I'm afraid of losing this person, I'm afraid of my money situation, I'm afraid of whatever it is that I feel lonely. That could also be, one. What's on the other side of it? There is trust that, and with loneliness, the other side of it is feeling connected. Loneliness is feeling detached from everything. The other side of that is, of course, feeling connected to everything. Yeah. That's sort of one dynamic. Then there's the I'm afraid that I'm losing my partner, or I'm afraid of my future, or I'm afraid of losing my business, or that fear has the antidote. It has a lot to do with trust. In my understanding, I trust in the love of the universe. That's where it comes in. And when I lean into trust, I also do something else, which we actually were talking about before we started recording today, which is letting go of what we can't control.
That is very interesting and very important to touch upon that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when we are attached to control, we suffer a lot, right? When we are attached to wanting things to be in a certain way, we suffer.
Yeah. And when, I mean, like, also taking this up to the world leader scale, actually, like or like the structures of our societies, of our culture, which have been this command and control leadership style, or this like underpinned by the fear, and that, I mean, like, we have come to this point in time in humanity's evolution, but we will self-destruct if we don't change this now from this command and control and into this trusting, loving, totally new paradigm of freedom, of the abundance of nature, the ability of self healing also of the nature, and of all the possibilities that we have at hand if we change to the heart frequency, if we open the heart, if we can manage that transformational journey within ourselves and as humanity as a whole. This is where the key is, to all the solution to all the problems. But that takes quite a high level of consciousness to get that, and you're not, I mean, like, I don't think you can access that when you are lost in the fear and the control and the lag and limitation paradigm. So what do we do to what do we do moving forward? Like, I mean, like, we can't wake up people around us. We have only ourselves to wake up. Or what?
Yes, I definitely agree. We can only take the radical decision to become giver, to apply, to practice giving. That's a radical decision. It's up to you, it's up to me, it's up to all of us to take the radical decision from today. I am going to practice giving in every single thought, word, and action. I'm going to do my best to give in my thoughts, words and actions. And that is a declaration of commitment, or a declaration of intention we can do. Then that journey is like, okay, I made that commitment. I have made that commitment. I'm committed to giving in thought, word, and action every single second of my life. And of course, I get really mad and frustrated, and I think, okay, this person is, such a, jerk, or I get frustrated because this is happening, and I get triggered in my own fear, and I'm like, I get triggered in fears of not being good enough, or not being worthy, or fear of losing some, separation anxiety. But that doesn't change my intention and my commitment. And I have the commitment. Yes. And this is what I would love to inspire as many people as possible. Say, we can make the commitment. It doesn't mean that we succeed 24 hours a day. Of course not. I mean, if we did, we would probably be dead, and we would be all energy, right?
I think
we're having, our souls are having the human experience, and part of the human experience is living through all this, all the what
From
we, yeah, the trauma, and to transform that is our job, right? We can still have the intention and the commitment, and what can we do about it? What we're doing, what you're doing, what I'm doing, that's what we can do. We can do our best to walk the talk. We can do the best to be as genuine as possible in our commitment to give. And then of course what we do in Nordic, where our consultancy there is spreading the tools of regenerative consciousness and leadership, which are at the very core, it is about looking at nature, using nature, saying, okay, we are nature, we look at nature. What's the logic of nature? We are nature. Maybe we should start acting like nature, that would kind of be a good place to start. But it's also about the giving mindset, very profoundly, and really integrating how do we give more than we take at a very personal level. And from there also, if I have, the clients that I work with, when they go through the shift themselves and it just clicks in them and say, wow, oh yes, how can I go to a meeting giving more than I take? How can I develop products where we actually give more than we take? How can we have a team development where we give more? How can the people that come to work, how can they go home feeling more, not necessarily energized after long, but feel that they have gotten a little bit more than they had when they came? So applying the giving mindset has so many implications.
I think it's
and also at the end of the day, it influences how you cannot develop a product that harms people or the world once you made the shift inside of you. It's impossible. You just can't do it. And I think we all know that. We know if we suddenly really fall in love with nature, it's really difficult for us to throw a plastic bottle in it, because we're like, okay, how are you going to suffocate? How can you put this plastic thing that's just like suffocating nature? You can't do that once the connection clicked in, right? And we're not all, I drive a car and I fly and I'm not again, I'm not a 100% nature giver. I take from nature. I use, I heat my house. I do all these things. But I have an intention, and I have made a very radical commitment to that intention. And that's what we can do, I believe.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. I also think it would make sense to have the level of ambition that people should go from a meeting energized. That because like giving more than we take. I think it's interesting also the difference or the evolution from sustainability and then into the regenerative paradigm, that it's just not enough just to sustain. It's just not enough anymore. We've passed that point. Now we really have to make this radical commitment to start just giving and giving from an open heart, giving from love, which does not require something back, that it's not something for something now.
Right.
It's like we just give now because we can feel it, but it is another level of being on the planet.
Yeah. It really is a different way of being on the planet for all of us. And I do believe we are, I'm an optimist in that sense. I believe we're on the path is opening, and it's opening. In that sense, COVID really did a lot of harm, but it also did something else, and it did open a consciousness, and it did open an awareness of what matters.
And what was interesting also during lockdowns, how the earth in a matter of days and weeks just started like healing and regenerating, like and how you could measure the betterment of the world, of the planet, when we were not part of the equation, when we were locked away. That was also an eye-opener, I think, for many people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting. So you have at Promentum Nordic, you have a workshop coming up here in September and October about regeneration from within. It's the first time you are facilitating this workshop, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. And it's very exciting because it really is what we're talking about. It's really making the shift inside. And actually, as we talked about earlier, there's a lot of things we say, like it's important to love yourself. We know that. It's important to appreciate ourselves. With regeneration, there's kind of the same situation, right? Oh yes, it's important to give more than we take. But what does it mean?
In practice,
what is it?
In everyday living, in the business, in the organization,
and I mean, what I really love about working with regenerative leadership and consciousness is that it's holistic. It's not just this is going on in the organizations, because it's an acknowledgement that we are systems. We are humans that are part of a living system. And that, of course, includes our personal lives, our love relationships, our family relationships, our friendships, how we are as colleagues, how we deal with ourselves, how do we tackle our own boundaries, and what is the embodiment of this shift.
Yeah.
And that is so pivotal. Loving ourselves. What is the embodiment? What is self-love embodied? Self-love as a concept, nice. Embodied self-love, that's different. And the same with regenerative transformation. It's the embodiment of it. It's when we can actually feel, okay, this is what giving more than we take actually feels like. This is how I can feel it, and this is how it expresses itself from a place of truth inside of me, from a genuine place inside me. And that's different, and that's what we're going to do a lot about. And it's very exciting. It's very, very exciting.
I'm going to put a link to Promentum and also a contact link to you and whatever about this. It's very, very interesting, and I'm very excited about this new work and path you're on. Especially knowing that you are love, walking and talking. I know that this is profound and deep shifts that are going to happen for leaders and organizations really committing to this path, which I hope everyone will in the years to come, because it's high time. It's high time. It's high time. So to sum up our conversation,
Yes.
Lucy,
Yeah.
how do we create the world we love to live in?
The shortest answer to that is that we raise our awareness of the experience of love inside, that we have accessible quite simply, not necessarily easily, but quite simply, by starting to give. It really is quite simple. It's just very, very deep, actually. It's simple and very, very deep. When we start giving and we start experiencing that within, then everything changes, from our personal lives, from the relationship to ourselves, to each other, and to the world. And that applies, of course, to organizations, communities, and our relationship to the planet. But it all starts with that awareness of of the energy of love that is within us that we can activate by starting to give.
Yeah.
That would be my 50 cents summing that question up.
That sounds totally spot on as a sum up. I just want to add one final question, because we touched upon it during the talk about the need for boundaries sometimes, the experience of getting caught up in other people's dramas maybe, or in a drama that we co-created, but the need for, I mean, like, we give. There must be some practical guidelines in order for us to, should there be we should only give, I guess, when it feels coming from a pure open heart. And if we close down in some way or the other, is that a sign that a boundary needs to take place, and then we can work and then we can start giving again when we're ready? Or that is just...
Yeah, I like to ask the question when we talk about giving, does it feel like a sacrifice?
That's good.
And we all know that. We know that oh, this person calls us and asks for help. And we're like, yes, that's one place. And then there's the other, it's like, oh, well, it doesn't, I actually have this other thing, but okay, I'll cancel it. Yes, okay, then I'll do it. And then we're already like, does it feel like a sacrifice? It's it takes some courage to be honest with it, because we like to think of ours. We can be quite attached to being good guys, right? Good people. So if we're very attached to our self-understanding of being good people and helpers, we are very attached to the self-understanding of how incredibly giving we are, right?
Exactly.
So it takes quite a lot of courage actually to say, okay, this actually is not, I mean, this is such a bad situation for me. I don't want to give in that situation, or it really suits me like horribly, or I feel I'm sacrificing something. I feel I'm not being genuine about this. If that's the situation, then I would definitely suggest that we then look at what's going on before we give, because then we're not giving. Then we're actually not giving at all. We're just being deceptive towards other people.
Thank you for pointing that out. For me, it has been a lifelong journey exploring this and working with this. So I've come to the point where if I feel like I give from a position in the drama triangle, like from the position of a victim or a rescuer or a violator, myself or others, if I give from that position within me, it's a no. And I have to stop it right away. But if I give from a position in the freedom triangle, the empowerment dynamic, where I'm the creator or the coach or the helper in a good way, like from a place of sovereignty, then it's a yes. And we can actually, when we have peeled all the layers and taken off all the masks, we do know.
Yeah.
If we come from drama or freedom, if we come from fear or love.
Our body knows.
Yeah. But it's just, that's also a lot of unlearning to do when we come from the position of wanting to rescue the world or help the world, or save the world. That is, I think, working with regenerative leadership with all these, I mean, like that, I think that is, well, a thing to consider, that the mindset of not being a savior or a rescuer.
Absolutely. Yeah. And really being aware of, what are you attached to? Are we attached to our own self-understanding of being fantastic? Yeah. Or are we actually attached to giving, which is, it's actually two quite quite different thing. And it's a lifelong journey to keep on being, you know, being aware and being aware, because of course we can get caught up in our own fabulousness as help.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much for sharing all your fabulousness.
It's a deep pleasure to hear.
I'm kidding. I'm not kidding, but
Yeah.
I think it was a very, very heart-opening, very inspiring conversation, Lucy. I thank you from the depth of my heart, and I cannot wait to share this with everybody feeling the call to listen in. So thank you very much for taking
Thank you very much. Thank you. Pleasure.